T for teens.
The year is 2000. The world breathes as if stepped across an invisible threshold. The internet is still crawling, but accelerating every day. DVDs are beginning to replace decades of analog tapes. Cities glows with screens and billboards promising the future. Every nation seems to be rushing towards a new era. And at the center of this translation, a black box appears. Silent, angular, minimalist, an object that could easily blend into any living room shelf. Yet inside the box lived a force no one, absolutely no one, truly understood at the time. The PlayStation 2 wasn't born as a simple game console. It was born as a symbol, a cultural artifact, a bridge between an analog past and a digital future. A machine that carried within its rectangular form a strategy capable of reshaping the industry and rewriting the story of entertainment itself. More than 160 million units, a number so massive it surpasses the population of most countries. A number that represents far more than produced sales. It represents the adoption of a phenomenon. But the secret behind its dominance wasn't graphics. It wasn't the controller. It wasn't the games. At least not at first. The secret was held inside a shiny disc. A disc that spun. A disc that changed everything. And this is where we begin to understand how a console becomes a king. Traditional narratives try to simplify the story. They say the PlayStation 2 won because it had the best games. Or because the PlayStation brand was already go strong, or because Sony was simply too big to lose. But none of those explanations, on their own, tell the truth. The PS2 won because it had already won before the race even started. In the year 2000, owning a DVD player wasn't common. In many countries, it was a luxury. Expensive, inaccessible. The world is still learning the value of those glossy discs that promise a superior image quality, superior sound, and more modern way to watch movies at home. Sony realized something no one else saw with such clarity. If PS2 could function as a fully capable DVD player, it wouldn't enter homes as a toy. It would enter as a personal cinema machine, and that would place in the most important location of any household, the living room, the territory that defines what a family watches, buys, consumes, and adopts. It was a masterstroke. A strategy that seemed innocent, but hid a massive power. A kind of technological Trojan horse. Because by selling a cheap DVD player, Sony also delivered a powerful game system. And by selling a gaming system, it delivered the new global standard of media the world was about to embrace. In countless countries, the PS2 was the first gateway to a modern home cinema. Entire families gathered around the screen to watch movies in quality they had never experienced before. And when a product wins the family, it wins the home. And when it wins the home, it wins the nation. The PlayStation 2 infiltrated the globe like no console before it. It became a part of daily life, part of Saturday nights, part of the move marathons. It stopped being peripheral and became essential. The moment the PS2 powered on, it became more than a gaming device. It became a culture platform, and that destroyed everything around it. To crown a king, someone else has to fall. And to the first to fall was the Sega Dreamcast, a brilliant console ahead of its time. The Dreamcast offered online gaming plan when the world wasn't ready for it. It offered innovation before innovation has an audience. It had great games, it had vision, it had courage. But vision means nothing when your opponent controls the psychology battleground. The Dreamcast tried to sell fun. The PS2 sold the future. The Dreamcast tried to sell technology. The PS2 sold utility. The Dreamcast tried to attract gamers. The PS2 attracted families. And the moment the numbers began to surface, the future became inevitable. While the Dreamcast was fighting for survival, the PS2 was flooding the world with explosive sales. Line after line, country after country, the Dreamcast didn't just lose. It was swallowed, consumed by the massive shadow of the PS2. And within a few years, Sega abandoned the hardware market entirely. An empire collapsed, and the PS2 emerged as the absolute protagonist of the industry. But no empire survives without its stories, and no machine endures without worlds to explore. This is where the PS2 evolves. It stops being just a strategic device and becomes a library, a galaxy, a cultural encyclopedia, the largest collection of narratives, emotions, and styles ever assembled within a single console. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas redefined the digital freedom. It wasn't just a game, it was a world that breathed, a world filled with choices, a world that felt alive, and for the first time, players around the globe felt like they had absolutely control over what they do and where they go. It was revolutionary. Metal Gear Solid 2 pushed the storytelling to cinematic levels, dramatic dialogue, intelligent camera work, suspense, reflection, a blend of a film and a game that blurred with boundaries between mediums. Something that confused, surprised, and captivated players everywhere. Final Fantasy X delivered raw emotion, a journey about destiny, sacrifice, love, loss, hope. A story that touched hearts regardless of language, and this is crucial, because the PS2 wasn't just a Japanese console, or an American one, or an European one. It was global. It crossed languages naturally. It unified cultures to universal stories. Games were translated, dubbed, reimagined, reinterpreted. Every country has access to the same worlds, tailored to its own language, and this transformed the PS2 into a global platform of shared experiences. It wasn't just about playing, it was about participating in something larger. More than 10,000 games, the largest console library ever made, a collection that felt infinite, a constellation of worlds connected by one machine, and every title added more power to the throne. But every empire cast a shadow, and the PS2 had one too. The iconic blue discs used by certain games became an expected symbol, a recognizable trait, but also a point of vulnerability. The PS2 was relatively easy to modify in many markets, and this created dynamics Sony couldn't fully control. In emerging countries where access to original media was limited, parallel ecosystems spread with astonishing speed. An informal economy emerged, a secondary circulation of games that, while problematic for copywriting, helping cement the PS2 in regions that otherwise would never had access to the modern consoles. Internet cafes, small drops, local markets. This place became distribution hubs, and this diffusion made the PS2 omnipresent. It was everywhere, officially supported or not, well maintained or improvised. Nothing held that expansion. And this only fed the myth. Time marched on, new generations rose. The PlayStation 3 arrived with lofty ambitions. The PlayStation 4 built the new era. The PlayStation 5 continues to redefine technology, and as all of this unfolds, and unlike the rival approaches, the Nintendo Switch. The Switch is a modern phenomenon, portable and homebound at the same time. It achieved extraordinary numbers. It creeps dangerously close to the PlayStation 2 American crown. But numbers never tell the full story. Because the PS2 wasn't just the best-selling console, it was the most influential, the most identity-defining, the most culturally significant. It shaped generations, connected countries, inspired developers, opened doors, created standards. It defined what it meant to grow up gaming at the dawn of the 21st century. If the PlayStation 1 paved the path, the PlayStation 2 built the highway. If the PS1 showed the future, the PS2 made the future accessible. It didn't just lead, it transformed. It didn't just compete, it dominated. And even now, more than 2 decades later, it impacts still breathes, in memes, in videos, in nostalgia, in remasters, in conversations with friends, in childhood memories, and stories retold over and over, revisiting that moment when the screen glowed blue, that startup sound. That feeling that something magical was about to begin. The PlayStation 2 wasn't just the most popular console ever made, it was, and it still is, the most important console in the history. And now I want to know, what PS2 game defined your childhood? Write down in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and that's it. See you next time.